Hello, Pewter people. Scott Reynolds here with another Pewter Pulse. Before we get started, I made a mistake in recording a Pewter Pulse on today's topic. I mistakenly jotted down the Bucs opponents in 2026, not 2025. Folks, please forgive me. It's been a long 2 weeks for me with a lot of stuff going on, unfortunately. So I scrapped that video and have a new one for you and some good news. Tampa Bay's actual 2025 schedule will look far more promising. So let's get to it. Now, with three straight wins, the Bucs are back above 500 and back on top of the NFC South division, thanks to four straight losses by the fading Falcons, who are falconing. After going through a gauntlet of facing some of the best teams in the league in the earlier part of their schedule, the Bucs are now piling up wins over some lesser opponents right now. The Bucs have played some tough NFL heavyweights this year, like Kansas City, Detroit, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and San Francisco. But wait until you see who the Bucs are playing next season. I'll get to that in a moment. But first, a reminder to hit the thumbs up button and give us a like on this video. You can do it right now. Just hit the button right there. The more likes we get on our videos, the more the YouTube gods favor our content. And also the YouTube gods love it when you leave comments. I do too. I read them and reply. So thank you for doing both. Now on to today's Pewter Pulse about the Bucs' potentially promising schedule that lies ahead in 2025. First things first, the official NFL schedule with times and dates won't be released until May after the draft. We won't know how many primetime games there are or if there are any international games for the Bucs in 2025 for a few months. But here's what we do know. Tampa Bay and all of the NFC teams will have 8 home games next year and 9 on the road. The NFC South is scheduled to play the NFC West and the AFC East next year. Those two divisions are not exactly the toughest in football. The NFC West is a dogfight right now with the 8-5 Seahawks in front of the 7-6 Rams, followed by a pair of 6-7 teams in the Cardinals and the underwhelming 49ers with 4 games left to play in the regular season. So for the fourth straight season, the Bucs will be playing the 49ers once again in Tampa Bay. The 49ers have beaten the Bucs in each of the last 3 years, but the score has gotten closer each time. Right before the bye week, San Francisco kicked the last-second field goal to beat Tampa Bay 23-20. Maybe the fourth time is the charm for the Bucs to finally beat the 49ers next year. Outside of the 10-3 Bills, the AFC East is also a mess and should present some opportunities to get some victories. The Jets and the Patriots are both 3-10 and just terrible. The Jets are battling the 2-11 Giants and the 2-11 Raiders and the 3-10 Panthers for the worst record in the NFL. They've also fired their head coach, their GM, and will likely move on from quarterback Aaron Rodgers in the offseason. So really the Bills might be the toughest team in the AFC East next year for the Bucs to face. Now, of course, the Bucs do scrimmage the Dolphins just about every year and play them in the preseason. So this one should be interesting, especially with the game being in South Florida. Miami has been a disappointment this year, largely due to Tua Tagovailoa's concussion, but their offense is still explosive with Devon Achane, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle, those explosive, fast wide receivers that Mike McDaniel has down there in Miami. This year's Bucs schedule featured 6 playoff teams from last year in Detroit, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Kansas City, San Francisco, and Dallas. The Bucs are currently 2-3 against last year's playoff teams with wins over the Lions and the Eagles, and they'll face the Cowboys in Dallas next week. But next year's schedule will only feature a maximum of 5 playoff teams, so one less than the Bucs faced this year. And there may only be 7 or 8 teams with the winning record on tap for next year, depending on how this season finishes up. So here's where things stand right now for the Bucs' home and away opponents if Tampa Bay wins the NFC South. Let's take a look at the home schedule. The Bucs will play the Cardinals, the 49ers, the Patriots, the Jets, and of course the Falcons, Saints, and Panthers at home, in addition to the NFC East champion. Again, as long as the Bucs win the NFC South. Right now, that would be the 11-2 Eagles. Now, let's say Tampa Bay finished second in the division and either made the playoffs as a wild card behind Atlanta, or maybe the Bucs missed the playoffs. Then Tampa Bay would play the second place team in the NFC East, which would be right now the 8-5 Commanders. So let's take a look at the Bucs away opponents in 2025. There's 9 of them. Tampa Bay is scheduled to travel to Los Angeles, Seattle, Miami, Buffalo, Atlanta, New Orleans, and Carolina, and trips to Detroit and Houston if the Bucs win the NFC South. So should the Bucs finish second in the division, they'll travel to the second place teams in the NFC North, which right now are the 11-2 Vikings. And the second place team in the AFC South is the 6-7 Colts. Although the Texans have not yet clinched the AFC South, but it looks like they will. So right now they would play the Colts if Tampa Bay finished in second place in the NFC South. So after playing 6 playoff teams last year, the Bucs could only play as many as 5 playoff teams next season. It looks like the mini rivalry between the Eagles could continue, as Tampa Bay has played Philly in each of the last 2 regular seasons, plus the playoffs last year. If the Bucs and the Eagles were to both finish in first place or second place, respectively, in their divisions, they'll play again next year at Raymond James Stadium. And of course, they still could play in the playoffs this year. And the mini rivalry with the Lions could also continue, as another trip to Detroit could happen if the Bucs win the division and the Lions would be the kings of the North. The Bucs have played the Lions twice last year and then once this year, and could see Detroit again in the playoffs if Tampa Bay makes the postseason and advances. So the Bucs could play the Lions for either the 4th or the 5th time over the last couple of years in 2025. If the Bucs do win the South, they'll play 5 playoff teams, the division winners in the AFC East, which will be Buffalo, and the NFC West, in addition to 3 other division winners in the AFC and AFC South, NFC East, and NFC North, likely Houston, Philadelphia, and Detroit, like we said. If the Bucs finish second in the NFC South, they'll also play 5 playoff teams, the division winners in the AFC East, which would be Buffalo, and the NFC West, and of course the NFC South. If they were to lose it, it would be Atlanta, in addition to 2 likely wildcard teams in the Commanders from the NFC East and the Vikings from the NFC North. So the rest of this season is going to be fun as the Bucs continue their playoff push. But the schedule for next year looks a little bit more promising in terms of Tampa Bay heading back to the postseason next year. Half of the Bucs' 2025 schedule could be against teams with losing records. You're never a loser when you check out our content on pewterreport.com and Pewter Report TV, our YouTube channel, and check us out on social media at Pewter Report. No, that makes you a winner and the most educated Bucs fan around. Here's what we want you to do. Check out Pewter Report TV, hit subscribe, and you can check out all of my Pewter Pulse videos, our Pewter Report podcast, and other great Bucs video content there. And then for all of the breaking news, inside scoop, game coverage, expert analysis, and of course, free agency and draft coverage, which will be coming up in a couple months, make sure you visit pewterreport.com, and I'll be back soon with the new Pewter